Hello and welcome, audience. First of all, I would like to introduce our guest today. He is Vivek Deveshwar, and he is an author of multiple titles. I'd like to name the titles. One of them is Surviving the Legal Jungle. It's a free book available on his website. We'll give you the link later. Then he has also authored a book named Guide for Men on Divorce, Cruelty, Desertion, and Environment. Another title under his name is How to Fight and Reduce Maintenance under Criminal Procedure Code 125 and Domestic Violence Act. There is yet another title that he has written, which is on alimony and maintenance under Hindu Marriage Act. Not only this, he has authored a website named menrightsindia.net and has been active and has been helping people in the area of men rights. Vivek ji, our audience would like to know that what is it and what do you do under men's rights?
I have been associated as a passion and as a, from my own social work and part-time work into this area of men's rights for last many years. I think more than 10 years by now. Generally, the need what has arisen is that there is a whole mindset and a paradigm which has arisen and which is still ongoing in India, which is that it's part of the constitution also. If you read Article 15(3), it says that special laws can be made for women and children, provided, of course, there is a reasonable classification and there is a justification for that. But in the name of that, what has happened is, again, this is an opinion and different people may have different opinions on this point. There is a lot of misuse of law which is happening, and there is a certain kind of paradigm which has arisen, which is that, I think if you go on social media, there is something called Believe All Women, or basically believe women. So if a woman says something against a man, whether it's a Me Too allegation or whether it's in the police station IPC 498 case or whether it's a domestic violence allegation, you should simply believe her, because her experience, her mind, her feelings, this is something which you cannot judge. No person, not even a person who is qualified in law, a police officer or a judge. So basically, you are raising that thing on a very high pedestal. If a woman says that, so there are many judgments on consensual sex versus rape. So that has become a problem. Technical rape, it's something which is, I think, India is probably one of the only countries, only big country at least, where this is, I think even police people have said that almost 80%, in some cases 50%, that number may be varying, but a large part of the rape cases which come in the police stations, they are of the variety where a girlfriend or boyfriend, they were having some consensual relationship, and later on, it has, after 2-3 years or even 5 or 10 years, the woman will say that I didn't consent, or I was promised marriage. So this is a false promise to marry, which is not part of the actual IPC 375 or 376. It is a judge-created law, so which itself is a point of debate and topic by itself. So whether you take IPC 498, Domestic Violence Act, and there are news stories that some people had a parking dispute between a woman and a man, and woman will allege molestation. So there is the Rohtak sisters case, famous case, where it was broadcast live, not live, but all over India at that time. And I think there were 3 men who were accused, and they lost their jobs by a lot of difficulty. Now they have got jobs after 5 or 6 years. And somebody challenged it, punished these girls who have filed that case, and it has been dismissed. It said the girls have suffered. Like, what did you suffer? You made a few people lose their jobs, go to trial for so many years. So it's a mockery of, the entire system. How a common sense person would think of a judicial principle, right? So, so basically, it's from that point of view of justice and right. So when we say right, so I think there is a famous saying. It was, I think, Hillary Clinton who made it famous. I don't know who said it first, but I think in 1995 she said that women's rights are human rights.
Okay.
So if you go by the law, men are also human. So men's rights are also human rights. There is nothing like, whether it may seem to you shocking to you at first go, but if you read the law also under Indian Constitution, everyone is equal. There is no gender or sex differentiation. I mean, broadly at a high level.
But
So men's rights
I'd
are also
like to
human.
interrupt you there. But the way,
Sure.
because some people might argue that the law is there to protect not only one or two men or not an individual, but the society at large. And the way society has been seeing men is not in a very good light. It has been known to some extent that men have been oppressing women for like decades, and so that begs the question that what is the magnitude of this problem that you're trying to solve, and if this problem is even real, like one or two cases might not form an opinion at large of people, and so is the problem really big enough to be discussed or to be to be brought to the attention of the population?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, whether a problem is big enough or not, you can. So there are two ways to go about that. One is you can go by the numbers. So, for example, let us take the case of legal terrorism. Legal terrorism in the context of specifically IPC 498 cases. So this term was given in a Supreme Court judgment way back in 2005 or something. So it is quite old, not a new thing. There are many Supreme Court judgments which have said that there is a need to revisit this law. Law Commission has also given some recommendation. I think most of them have not really been implemented into the amendments of the law. If you go by numbers, I think there are about 1 lakh to 1,10,000 IPC 498 cases filed every year. If you take average, it will be, and the number of people who are accused, it is much more than that. It is approximately 4 to 5 per case. So about 5 lakh people every year will be accused. Conviction rate is only between 13 to 70%. And so that number, first of all, it's very small. So you are making some 5 lakh people every year run around looking for anticipatory bail, looking for, running the police stations. People have to travel because one of the major problems is the criminal case will be filed in a different city than where the accused is staying. And the women who file these cases, many of them, they will drag somebody who is like, so if you are a husband and your wife has filed a case on you, just an example, and your sister is in US, so they will say, okay, she was harassing me for dowry. How did she harass you? She called me once, like 1 or 2 phone calls she made from US, and to put her name and put her husband's name, and if so, basically this is how people are dragged. I have seen myself cases even now. Earlier it was much worse. So 8 to 9 members of the husband's family have been dragged. Like some neighbor where they met once, some mediator, he has been dragged into, like just because they had one meeting where he said one sentence. That sentence, it's dowry harassment. So part of the, so this is a mockery of how law is supposed to protect. So if you go by numbers, see how many people die in road accidents every year in India. It's approximately 1.4 lakh, if I remember correctly. It hovers around that, and everybody says that the India has a very bad problem of people dying and getting injured in road accidents. So if you compare the IPC 498 numbers, number of people who are accused, who have to run around, many of them are arrested, that is again in number of a few lakhs. So if you compare by that statistics wise, I think it's a reasonable to say that this is a big problem. Now
let's do before we go ahead, let's do a little fact versus fiction check. Now, all these numbers that you were talking, where do you get these numbers from? Is it a public domain information?
Yeah, it is public domain. If you go on Ministry of Home Affairs, they have a department called National Crime Records Bureau. It's NCRB. Mm-hmm. And if you Google search for NCRB crime report, I think every year they release this report, which is, I think, few hundred pages. So it is a very detailed report, but it will be within a delay of 1 or 2 years. So if you search now, you will get maybe 2020 or 2019. It will have statistics of number of cases filed, be it murder, rape, IPC 498, theft, dacoity, like all the IPC and even other things like, drug, NDPS and several other things. So it's all in the public domain.
So right, it's valid. Now this seems to be the problem. Let me show you a solution. I'll share my screen and show you a solution that I tried to find online, and let me know if that works for people in general.
और इस तरह ना तो वो सच्चाई के लिए लड़ने वाला रहेगा, ना ही इंसाफ मांगने वाला। रह जाएगी तो सिर्फ तारीख, और यही होता रहा मिलाद, तारीख पर तारीख, तारीख पर तारीख, तारीख पर तारीख, तारीख पर तारीख मिलती रही है, लेकिन इंसाफ नहीं मिला मिलाद, इंसाफ नहीं मिला, मिली है तो सिर्फ ये तारीख।
Now, the point I'm trying to put forth here is that after all, judges are also human. So why can't somebody who is victimized of these false cases can't just go up and just talk his heart out to the judges? And because they're also human, why would they not listen, and why would the person not get justice?
Okay, see, first one point I will raise is this is a very emotionalism driven movie scene, and it's a famous Tariq Pe Tariq. But the point is actually, if you go by the how advocates and judges act in the courts and how they are supposed to, normally an advocate will not raise an issue in such a public way on the justice system itself, because advocates are also supposed to be part of the justice system. They are officers of the court. For an advocate to say that you are basically, he is in a way blaming the judge, because you can say blame the system, but he is in the court of a judge. So if he says you are giving Tariq Pe Tariq, so you are not doing your job. So generally what I'm saying is we should watch Bollywood movies for entertainment, but if you try to understand the law, it will be a problem. So that is one point. The other thing is, I think one problem in India is that if you go to any court, whether it's a criminal court or civil court, on any day, if you see the cause list, there will be anywhere from 60 to 90, sometimes even 100 cases listed. There is a cause list has to be run through in the first calling hour, then that itself may take 45 minutes to 1 hour. And then the proceeding has to begin, you may have to record evidence, you may have to do cross-exam on whichever case is ready. So there will not be enough time to give very individual attention. Now, one thing what I think some cases run under fast track courts, some cases even run on a day by day hearing basis. Actually, if you read the, Civil Procedure Code or these books, the cases are supposed to be run on a day-to-day hearing. That's how they should be. So ideally, I think if you run cases on that basis, they may finish within a few months at maximum. Or even if you get a date, maybe every week, maybe 1 or 2 dates. So how long it will run? Because the problem with Tariq Pe Tariq is also that the more you delay, it adds to the further delays, because one day some witness is not there, one day the advocate is indisposed, another day maybe the judge might be on leave or on some training. So there is an infrastructural and capacity issue. I think that is a major issue.
That begs a question. What you're trying to say, if I gather correctly, is that the Indian judiciary system is overburdened, and there is infrastructure or capacity issue there. So what is the typical duration of such cases that we are talking about? So a case which is based on somebody's dispute in their relationship of marriage. What is the typical duration of such cases?
Yeah, I think it may run anywhere from, if you see the metro cities, there are a lot more cases. So minimum 5 years, I would say. If there are children in marriage, it may run even longer because of more complexity in the issue. There are more things to be sorted out and discussed. So 5 to 7 years, and I have seen some cases which finish within 3.5 years. But generally, that happens, when both the parties are coming very regularly, and nobody is So it's not a very common thing. Some people have also told me that if you go to smaller cities, towns where the number of cases are lesser, the cases can finish faster. So, but typically, I would say a DV case or even a civil case. I think like one of my civil cases, it ran for 11 years, and if you read the petition, it was hardly 3.5, 4 pages. So, few years taken in some impleading one more party. A few years taken in like I went to the court only I think 4 times for evidence and cross-exam. So it is not that I had to go a lot. But after the evidence was over, then I think there was a cross-exam recall of the other side. So I think my sense is if you leave the consumer court out, which is a consumer forum actually, it's not exactly similar as a court. So there the cases are run faster, but even there people have told me, because I am aware of many consumer forum cases, many people take my advice there. So if it's a property builder case, the person, the property builder, he won't give that easily. He may take your case with 3, even 4 years. It's possible. If it's a simple case, some of my cases are finished out of court. Actually, a lot of them. Or if it's contested, then it may go on for 1.5, 2 years. But I think so. The whole point is like why people are allowed to drag a case. Is it something? So I think normally the concern is that nobody will say that we are allowing you to drag. People will, the judicial system will say we are doing it so that complete justice is done. So that is something which needs to be analyzed properly. Like, is it complete justice which is being done, or?
Right. So coming to the solution part of this, how about getting a good lawyer? Will it not solve the problem of somebody who is?
Yeah, of course. See, in anything, if you go, if you have accounts or financial problem, you will try to search for a good chartered accountant or tax consultant, for example. Or you want to invest somewhere, you want to search for a good mutual fund advisor or a mutual fund itself, or a doctor if you want to, you have some ailment. So my experience is that there is a lot of friction. Even if you have a very good case, there will always be friction. You have to spend money on court cases, so better read up the law yourself beforehand. And so that will also help you in finding a good lawyer or better lawyer, because see, if you see, I see on social media or internet several times people will be complaining, or people will be asking, this is a very common question, that kindly suggest a good lawyer to me in so and so city. So there is a problem with that, because a good lawyer, if you go by the common sense, then just like a good doctor or anybody, first of all they'll charge you more, they'll be busy. So secondly, they will be busy, they have so many cases, so will they be interested in your case? Let us say. So I think the main thing is people should understand what is their legal position, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the books, that if you go prepared with some basic knowledge of the law and how strong is your case, and where should you spend your time and energy on, because what I am seeing is that some people, they think they have some money, so they will do some unnecessary things in the courts. They will file some unnecessary application. Like I saw somebody who filed a perjury application. I didn't see anything, no perjury in that, but you're wasting your time, you're like everybody's time by doing these things. So my suggestion is read up the law. If you have something to file, if you have a case, you focus on those things, and do not waste excessive time in finding a lawyer who will finish your case within 1 or 2 years. It's not going to happen. See, there are other cases, people who are waiting in line, who have filed their cases before you. So this is again a very misconception that somehow if I find a good lawyer, he will speed up my case. I think that's a totally unrealistic expectation, because there are people in courts waiting before you for last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And what's so special about your case that you filed it 3 months back, and now it will go on the speed.
Right. So for the system, it's a case. Now there's so what you're suggesting is that one should have a little bit of knowledge of the law and how it works. Now there is one tiny big problem there, is that the language of law is very convoluted. It's very difficult to understand the way it is being written, and because I don't find such long sentences anywhere in any other subject than law, wherein a sentence begins and then there are so many commas and full stops and apostrophes that the sentence itself, however, it's just a language, but it's difficult to make sense of. So
I mean, see, for this thing, I believe citizens, I mean, the public themselves have to also raise their concerns. So I think somebody has filed a PAL in Supreme Court or High Court recently, just a few months back, where he's an advocate and he has requested that all the laws be written in a layman or public friendly language, because the language which is being used in all these laws, it is basically meant for advocates or lawyers, professionals, and general public finds it difficult to understand, because you will have clauses like, I mean, one joke is I was doing one MBA course with the professor. So he was a guest faculty actually, and he said, whereas. So he was teaching a course on commercial law. So he made a joke that, you don't need these phrases like whereas or, whatever those terminologies. You can draft your contract even without them. It is not necessary that one needs to have. But I think, so this is some kind of a tradition, or I would say, I mean, it's unfortunate that if you see in India, somebody showed me one FIR, I think it was in North India, and I couldn't understand most of the words. I mean, they were written some Farsi, Persian words. Okay. Maybe 100 years or 150 years back, Indians, there was a Mughal rule and Persian was one of the languages. But who understands that language? I mean, as far as I know, I mean, unless you train yourself to understand those words, it was a lot of Persian words being used. So we should apply our mind as public. So this is something where public themselves have to demand, because if people sit passively that, okay, I will find a good lawyer, or, he will take care, or he or she, things will be fine. But if you are citizens, so the thing is, like, people are studying so many subjects in their 9th, 10th, whatever classes, like civics and social studies and whatnot. But if I tell you, somebody has a problem, if I tell, okay, file one RTI, right to information, that itself, some people will think, okay, let me find a lawyer for that. See, RTI is not something which a lawyer should file. It is something for a citizen to be aware of. So for every small thing, if you think that some professional will help, some social activist will help me, see, RTI activist is not going to help, every individual to file your RTIs. That's not, I mean, I don't like that word also, activist. It's used too much. So a little bit of rambling on. So I don't know if I answered your question completely. If you can just repeat what was the point?
So my question was that when you say that one needs to be informed about the law, and I've heard it somewhere that it is not only your privilege that you would be given I mean, all the law which is there, it's a public domain information, you can go and read there, but it's also your responsibility to know the laws of the land that you are in. But
of course,
but where does one should begin? Because see, the victim that we are talking about here is a man who is frustrated, who has been accused of something that he has not done. Now, if you're talking about that person, he's looking for lawyer, he's trying to arrange money for that. And on top of it, when you say that, you read the law as well. So where should one begin? Could that be the reason that you've written these 4 books, or how are they different than other law books?
The one reason I wrote these books also was, there is a difference between a false case in any other domain versus in the area of, men's rights or these kind of issues. And I think the problem is the same thing which I had started this conversation with. There is a believe all women kind of mindset, paradigm which has evolved. And I think the whole point over there is that there is a mindset that, if you file a false case or whatever, even if there is a false allegation on a guy, he'll come up, he will fall down, he will get injured, he will come up, he will, wash off his dust off his clothes, and he will start running again. He's a strong guy, nothing can happen to man. because men are privileged, men are, male privilege. Male privilege is a common term. And but if a woman, so like this Rohtak sisters case, why the judge has dismissed is the logic is like the girls have also suffered, so what suffering is the complainant has to go through, because they may have come to the court a few times to give their evidence and cross-examination. The guys, they lost their job, they lost their reputation. They would be coming every time. If they don't come one time to the court, NBW will be issued non-bailable warrant. So who's suffering? If you compare the suffering. So first of all, filing a false case and undergoing that, whole process is not suffering. So I think that mindset we are having, society is having, that, a woman is, even if she feels something, whether the feeling has any justification in fact, we have to treat it like a suffering. So I think the point here is that there is a paradigm which has evolved, which is, you don't treat a woman, an adult woman, like an adult. You treat her like a woman child. What it means is that, because if a judge says that, the girls have suffered, so, or there are other examples, like some woman who filed it was a proven false dowry harassment case. The trial went for 5 to 6 years, and this woman was fined 500 rupees as fine.
Okay.
So, and there are several such, like a very small punishment. It's like a token punishment. Like some woman was made to stand in the court from maybe 11 till 4 p.m. till the court closed. So you stand in the court for one day.
Okay.
That is your complete punishment. So some innocent person was dragged to the court for 5 to 6 years, and you stand in the court for a few hours, and your punishment is over, and go home. Everything is. So we cannot have this woman-child mindset. So there are so many false rape, false gang rape cases. I mean, almost every day there is one news. All over India, there is a gang operating. There is a people doing it in as a collusion, or as even police is involved many a time. So now what's happening is some people actually complain, and then they find that there were some 10-15 other people who have already suffered in this kind of by the same woman, or by 2-3 women, and maybe some male accomplice also, who trap people in these kind of false rape cases and all that. So basically, I think this is a different paradigm, and that's the reason I needed to write these books. And in fact, I plan to write one more book, which probably will be a overall overview of all the issues, be it criminal laws, family law, matrimonial law. And so it will be something which I have not covered in any of these books so far, but it will tie in all these things together. So I think once somebody reads that, and I plan to give it for free, so I don't plan to charge anything for it. So people will understand, like if you want to change the system also, so without knowing how the law or the judicial system works, if you simply keep ranting on social media, laws in favor of women, that's again I think some kind of somewhat true, but I will say it's people use it in a almost a mythical way, laws in favor of women. And I ran a poll on Twitter where I said that if the common public says it's one thing, so I have that poll, and I think so people said that advocates are telling us that laws in favor of women. So that's a very to my mind it's a very it's a little bit disturbing because the statement is incorrect, because law is supposed to protect the weak or the victim. So that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons I had to write these books, because if people get stuck in these very conventional paradigm, laws in favor of women, if I find a good lawyer, everything problem will be solved. Or some people used to say that, you get anticipatory bail. Once you get anticipatory bail, 90% of the problem is over. Your trial is pending. You have to wait for another 5 to 7 years for your trial. How can you say anticipatory bail is the end of every? Okay, it may be one important insurance for you that you don't fear arrest anymore. So these kind of formula-based thinking that you one sentence, if you laws in favor of women, or I will find a good lawyer, and I don't need to read any law because that is anyway very difficult to read. So I think that is not a very wise approach. So that's the reason. All these are the reasons I wrote the books, and my next book will also be cover these points.
Great. And I'm sure these books are available on some platforms where people can go and have access to.
Yeah. So these books are on Kindle. Some of them are in PDF format also. So Surviving the Legal Jungle is a free ebook, PDF you can download on menrightsindia.net, which is, I'm the author of that website, and so it's available. And my plan is that I am also planning to put some books on my own website shortly in a few days. And
Great. Vivekji, we are pretty much done. And before we go, I would like to read some excerpts from your book. And I'm reading it from your first book, Surviving the Legal Jungle, with your permission, of course. So that's page 11, chapter 2, Myths, Misconception, Wrong Idea about Law. Arrest means guilty. One of the old common myths in mind of the public is that if a person is arrested, that is a cause of huge shame and humiliation, presumably because people think that only people who are guilty get arrested. People do not realize that only upon conviction in criminal court, someone is deemed guilty of that crime. Until then, he, she may be an accused, but is considered innocent as per law. And this is the first myth you are trying to bust there about the law.
And this is a myth which, unfortunately, it is held by, most of the middle class in India. Almost, I think, 90% of even highly educated people. They may be BTech, MBAs, doctors, whatnot. Because if you see Twitter, social media, I spend time on Twitter often enough, and whenever somebody has an issue with some XYZ, whether it's a journalist or politician or somebody accused of a crime, suddenly you will have these hashtags trending: arrest XYZ, replace XYZ with whatever that person's name is. So
as if it will solve the problem.
This arrest is not some kind of a social mob that if it's not a election that if 51% or majority people say arrest, then he or she has to be arrested. So arrest itself is a procedure under the law, and the reason for arrest is because police may need to interrogate somebody regarding a crime to get some data and information to proceed further. Arrest is not meant to put somebody in a lockup, to humiliate, him or her, or to teach them a lesson. So I think, unfortunately, like you had shown that clip from a movie, and a lot of people, I think, one thing I would suggest to everybody is, please do not try to learn about law from Bollywood movies or maybe even TV serials. I don't watch, first of all, too many TV serials or Bollywood movies, but whatever I have watched in my childhood or even here and there, I think I can say with confidence that most of our Indian movies, they are, in general also, they are very high on sentiments, emotionalism, dialogues. Even this recent movie Jolly LLB, there were so many wrong portrayals in that, both about judges and lawyers and the procedures in the courts. So there were a lot of mistakes, and they were deliberately done to make it an interesting story for public consumption. So kindly do not, you view the movies for entertainment, but do not try to learn the law, because you will have a lot of. And this arrest means guilty. I think it has come from this whole this emotionalism kind of, and Bollywood kind of entertainment-driven this thing.
Yeah.
So that's a very wrong
There's
mindset.
this one dialogue which I remember, which was very much used in Bollywood, but I've never seen it happening in real life. Is "You are under arrest." Now, there's a person standing 10 feet away. There's a person standing 10 feet away from the policeman who's saying you are under arrest. Now, as soon as you are under arrest has been verbalized, there will be a high-pitched music as if his life is finished.
Oh, okay.
and how is somebody under an arrest without restraints or without, so he's a free man, he can run away. But you are under
arrest. There could be a legal definition also that, if a police officer says that you are under arrest, then you shouldn't, if you try to run away, then it will be maybe a bigger crime, because, you shouldn't try to run away. You should cooperate, with the police. And So I think, yeah, I mean, that whole, music and background, soundtrack, I think we should use it for entertainment. And, in terms of legal dramas, I think the only thing I remember, if I, which I remember from childhood movies, where they used to see, these 60s and 70s movies, some old courtroom drama, they will say, कानून सबूत मांगता है, कानून मतलब आप जो भी कह रहे हैं ना, तो उसमें सबूत कहाँ है? Where is the evidence? So I think from that point of view, maybe that's one sentence I think is the correct thing. कानून, the law needs evidence. So if you do not have evidence and if you run around in the courts, you will only waste your own time. So I think that part is probably the correct one. So I guess.
Yes, Vivekji, we are pretty much done. And
Okay.
thank you very much for your time. And I would encourage the viewers and audience today to go online and read your books. Just to even if not, Surviving the Legal Jungle is a generic book on law, maybe to inform themselves, educate themselves. And I would also like to thank the audience for watching this interview. Thank you very much, Vivekji.
Thank you, Vivekji.
All right. So coincidentally, my name is also Vivek. I and that made this whole thing more interesting. I'm sure that we will have much more to talk in our future interaction. And
I think
I
this
would
turned
encourage
out
the audience.
pretty well.
Sure. And I would encourage the audience to put their questions in comments if they have any, so that you can go through them and answer them, or maybe in our future talks we can.
I think, so one final point I would like to tell the people, the audience, is that do not try to think of law and courts and police and the system as some kind of it's like you are a very low level person and these are very high level things, or you cannot understand them. You have to leave it to the parliament or MPs or some leaders or some judges and lawyers. So of course they are playing their role. They are doing their duty, but it's your duty as a citizen also to be aware of laws, and if you see something wrong is happening, and if you can appreciate and understand what's wrong is happening, then you should raise a complaint or take the legal route rather than falling for some escape routes. So which is a common problem I have seen, that people have this mindset in India that you bribe somebody or you try to take an escape route and you will escape. So I'm telling you, it's not going to work out. You may spend more time and energy in those escape routes kind of scenario. So it's better to be involved and be engaged with the process, even though it may at times may seem frustrating. But I would say that in my experience, people who have gone through this process and who took an active engagement kind of role rather than a passive role, they have finished their cases in a much faster way, and they are also happy because once you're involved with something, you will also feel that okay, I'm giving a good fight. Whether I win or lose, but at least I'm doing my part. But if you are passive and you leave it to fate or whatever, astrology or whatever, so it's a waste of time, I would say, because you will, at the end of it, you will spend more time, more energy, and the results will also not be as good. So that is my request, that don't think of law as some kind of a very something for the experts or intellectuals. It is not supposed to be that way. Yeah, it's for everyone. Yeah.
Exactly. Very well said, Vivekji. So that's definitely one of the takeaways that I'm taking, that law is meant for everyone. It is meant to protect everyone. And it will be funny that something which is there, that exists, and to protect you, and you would not know about it. That's really funny. So people should know about it.
That's again, these are the misconception and fear in the mind of public. So let go of fear.
Exactly. On those notes, we would now be departing, hoping to see each other very soon again. And I'd again request people to put their questions in the comments. And thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Thank you very much, Vivek ji, for your
Yeah,
time
thanks, Vivek,
and
once again. Yeah.
expertise that you've shared today. And that would be the end of the session. We both would sign out now.
Okay. Yep.